Hey, what's up, everybody? The V Club here, Villain Club. That's what it's all about. Anything and everything. Nothing's off the table. And I'll talk about it, right? If you want to raise a question, a comment about anything and everything you want to talk about, let's have a conversation and we could share our thoughts about it. Situations that are going on, just whatever it is you want to talk about. But I feel that what I speak because I know what you're thinking and that we're on the same page. But at the same time, we can always agree to disagree. I'm just open like that. But anyhow, let's talk about it. I just come at an angle of all perspectives, and that's what I'm here for. Alright, so with that, I just released a video. Well, when you see this video was posted yesterday, but this is where it's at, though. All right, this is about Gavin Newsom's new bill about trying to curb high gas prices, but the problem is it's California and Gavin Newsom and not big oil. But anyhow, check that one out. But let's talk about what everybody else is talking about. All right, whoops, not this one. Hey, what? Not this one. Let's go over here. Let me go back here. We got to go over to here. There we go. All right, let's talk about the Fox interview. Everyone's talking about the Fox interview and how it was a disaster interview. It was a flop. Everybody's talking about it and in all different angles. And so it was about roughly a 30-minute interview on Fox with Brett Baer. My whole thing, I guess it was said that Brett Baer is fair, in terms of he'll push the questions and he's fair about it, and he's not cutthroat, and he'll treat you just like anybody else, in that same room. And it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's, a Donald Trump or, in this case, a Kamala Harris, that he's going to treat you the same, right? That's what his reputation is. So, with all that, I watched the whole interview. I'm not going to play the whole interview, but it was interesting to say the least for that. And let's see here. Lots of things that were talked about. The first thing he went into was straight up the illegals. Boom, right away. Straight up illegal immigrants. All right. And there's a lot of the key issues with this interview was how she still indirectly answers questions, or she would deflect, a lot of deflection. And at the end, when I guess her handlers were waving them off, saying the interview's done. That's what they keep referring to, this awkward moment, and it's been highlighted everywhere throughout. All right, so I want to look at a couple of clips, all right, at the same time. So here's another one. Here's Brett Baer here. I guess he's going to sum it up, right, that she's looking for a viral moment. Let's see what he has to say. This is the aftermath, day after the interview. So let's take a look at this here. Go to this right now.
And the man of the hour joins us now. Brett, good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning.
So morning.
You've had 15 hours now to marinate over this. What did you think about how it went?
Guys, good morning. I left there right after the interview, and I thought, wow, this was really a lot more contentious than I thought. It was there was a lot of filibustering. I didn't really want to keep on interrupting, but if I didn't, I thought there were maybe be 4 answers total in the interview. I think I came away with there were moments that clearly she prepared for, that I think she wanted to have the viral moment, and she got it, and I think think her campaign was happy with that. I think there were things that Mark played and some other moments where I think a lot of people looking back at the transcript are going to say, wow, that's interesting, it's newsy, it's not what she usually answers.
One of the things you talked about at some length was immigration. And if you pull up call for number 1, this is about her reaction, the Biden-Harris reaction to migrant crime.
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that.
So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying?
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in.
So see, deflecting that when we all know the issue was if there wasn't an open border, the Lake and Riley murder wouldn't have happened, right? I mean, that's just straight up. But yet she's deflecting it to go put it back on Trump right here.
Solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all fairness, I told you I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
One thing I noticed is that she didn't really seem to have a way to say, so here's what I'm going to do differently going forward, an opportunity to do that. That could have been an opportunity missed.
Yeah, and listen, Dana, that's the key thing about immigration is that the 94 executive orders that were rescinded in the first days of the Biden-Harris administration, they opened the door. They took away the catch and release. They took away remain in Mexico, and that's the whole thing. I mean, she wants to talk about this bill that they dropped first, which was kind of an amnesty bill to pass the citizenship for 11 million immigrants in the first days that had no chance. The White House had the Democrats had the White House, the House, and the Senate, and they didn't bring it up or push it. The second bill she talks about right away is the comprehensive bipartisan bill that had 6 Democrats that voted against it. And, you know, yes, Donald Trump maybe lobbied against it, but there were also problems with that. And in between those 3.5 years was things that could have happened. And we've talked about that many times. And that's what I was trying to get to.
And then you did press her on the fact that the American people say that 79% of the country think it's on the wrong track. She tried to say, but that's because Trump's been running for 8 years. What'd you make of it?
I thought it was interesting. I just think she came back to Donald Trump, I think maybe 15 or 20 times in the interview. And that one was really interesting because I was talking about the wrong track and she said, you know what I'm talking about. And I actually didn't. And I just said, I actually don't know what you're talking about. And I think that was an interesting moment because she kept on going back to Donald Trump, who obviously hasn't been in office for the last 3.5 years.
And for the
Yeah, and we all know that what they keep saying overall, like the news is that Democrats have been in office for, when you look at it, 12 of the last 16 years. So you can't blame it all on Trump, right? Everything Trump, Trump, Trump. You know, that's the problem that they have when it was so obvious. Everybody can see what the whole border issue was when they lifted the executive orders. Pretty much the floodgates was open for all to come in. All right, and so that was the trigger that opened it all up. But yet, she doesn't even acknowledge that that was the key to everything, but kind of blame the overall immigration problem, illegal immigration problem. And it's funny because she says she's going to follow the laws, but it's illegal to have illegal entries, but yet that's not following the laws when you think about it. So, I don't know. I just thought it was, that to me was, what was talked about in the interview. That was a big problem, right? Let's see here. Kamala pledges to break from the Biden presidency. I think she acknowledged that she's going to do things differently from Biden, which is unique in itself. All right, so I thought that was interesting that she said it that way. Let me move this over. Let me go back. Let me see here. Pull this. Hold on. Let me do this here. There we go. Got to pull that. There we go. That's better. All right. 5 key. Let's see if the Washington Post is fair about what they're saying here. Sat down. Immigration clash. Yeah, they were going at it for a while with this whole illegal immigration thing. The first question was, you know, how many illegal immigrants have come into the country? And she would not answer that question. Maybe in her mind she thinks there's a different number. But yeah, so she kept deflecting though on a lot of things, so about, we had the bipartisan border security bill and blah blah blah, gender surgery for prisoners. Then she actually said, well, Trump actually followed that. And then under Trump's administration, the surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. Think about that. If it's a medical necessity, that's different than giving gender affirming care, right? Because when you're doing gender affirming surgeries or care, you're really giving that person the leeway, the option to do whatever they want to do. And it's not a medical necessity. Just like when you're doing transgender or gender affirming stuff, right? In general, a lot of it is not medically necessary, right? A great majority of it isn't. It's more of choice. Oh, I want to be a girl, so can you do this surgery for me to make me a girl, right? Can you, give me breast, and can you give me hormones and things like that, right? It's a choice versus medical necessity. So she said it herself, and that Trump did it on a medical necessity basis, which really meant probably nothing, right? Or very minimal at the very least. Whereas, how many is actually happening at this moment? There should be I wonder if there's a stat on that. And so she accused Trump of trying to create a sense of fear in voters, and that it's a remote issue for most Americans. Yeah, but the thought of our money being spent on gender affirming care for prison inmates is not a remote issue. It's still it's not a big issue, but at the same time, just to have that, around, especially in California too, that's something that shouldn't even be supported, right? But more and more are being given to prisoners, as time goes on, right? In terms of what they get to have, what they don't have, which is really they're getting to have more and more and more things, almost like as if they're free, right? And it's like, why would you do that though? You know what I mean? Like, why would you want to give them all these things? It's almost like you're somewhat rewarding them for their, bad behavior that they've done before, and all of a sudden you're just saying, okay, well, here you go, guys, right? I mean, believe it or not, when you go into the prisons, right, they actually have a lot of stuff. They have access to food, they have access to having TVs, tablets, a lot of things, all right, more than you think, all right? They can live well, and there are many, many times that when it is time to get released from prison, there's actually times when they're afraid to leave because they don't want to live the reality outside the prison walls, because they're not being cared for anymore. They're not given food anymore. And that shelter that they're in, even though it's a prison, right, cell, they don't have that, in a sense, room anymore. So they don't have a room with a bed to sleep on, because they have beds, they have mattresses, right? Then, food 3 times a day, care for, pain. If you have pain, you have a headache, whatever, bandage for your wounds, things like that. They love that reality, believe it or not. I'm not saying all of them do, but some actually prefer to stay in because they got nothing else out there for, to be living for. But yeah, so I don't care for this gender affirming stuff in prison. I think it's a waste of money. And there's even legislation, or not, I'm sorry, proposition in California to, I guess you could say, it has something to do with like the treatment of prisoner workers inside the prisons to make it more fair and all that stuff, because it's so blight and the pay sucks and blah blah blah. But the thing is, though, they're not. Oh, and they're being forced to do it, right? That's the key. The thing is, though, they're not being forced to do nothing. That's the thing. They're not. Believe it or not, they love to work. All right. They actually want to do things because it just gives them something to do, and that's what they like. They want to just do things because they really got nothing else to do. So if you give them a task, and you don't have to tell them to do it, you can just say, "Hey, did you want to do this task?" And they jump all over that. So I'm just saying that's the reality of everything. So, that's just, I know it's not really the Kamala thing, but when I see the prison thing with the gender affirming and all these things that they keep giving to prisoners, it's like, what's the point of having prison if you keep giving them everything, right? So, I don't know, that's just my thought on that. What she do differently from Biden? Well, she initially said that there's nothing that comes to mind that she would do differently. She said it twice in 2 different interviews, right? She did it on The View. She did it on Colbert, Stephen Colbert's Late Show, right? And so, Brett Baer asked, well, if you're going to turn the page, you've been president for 3.5 years, vice president for 3.5 years. What are you turning the page from, right? I mean, that's true. What are you turning the page from? Are you trying to turn the page from the disaster of the Biden presidency? Are you, what? That is a very fair question, right? So, she said that I'm clear. Let me make this clear: my presidency will not be a continuation of the Joe Biden presidency. Well, because you think Biden's progressive and extreme? Oh, I mean, despite what Kamala is saying, her past has shown that she's extremely extreme and progressive on her ideas and points of views and how she gone about things, and it's all out there. All right, from the early days of her being in San Francisco as the DA, all the way up to now, or all the way up until she ran for president back in 2019, and she dropped out first because her views were extremely extreme. All right, here I could see that she could just turn it up, the extremeness from Biden even more. I don't see her turning it down because it's the Democrats. They're a machine, and they're controlling Biden. The machine is controlling Harris, and all they're doing is just really, if you want to talk about, creating, the separations and differences across the country, that's what they're doing here with the elites separating and really causing an issue and divide and division with these elites and Democrats versus pretty much everybody else that's on the Republican side of things. And you know what's caught in the middle? The poverty, right, of low income and illegals, right, which are kind of caught in the middle because they're led to believe that Democrats are there for you in good faith. But then when you look at what's happening, Democrats have been pushing the blacks out the door, and the legal Latinos out the door in favor of illegals from everywhere else in the world, right? Because it's the illegals that are getting the handouts. It's the illegals that's getting all that stuff with food, shelter, place to go, be kind of amongst the society of the United States. And that's why they're trying to push legislation to have them, be here legally, right? That's what they were talking about in the first bill that Harris was mentioning that was supposedly put on the table. I never even heard of that, but it was never even considered. And then even in this whole bipartisan so-called bill, they're trying to pave the way for amnesty for these illegals to be permanent in the United States. Like, how is that even, like, why, how do we even get here in the first place? To let illegals come in and all of a sudden say, all right, we're going to allow you to stay here permanently. And it's like, well, you're illegal though. That's my whole, and I don't get it. And I don't see why people just don't get it. So, she was impassioned and sparred with Bear over Trump's rhetoric, which she said has left much of the public feeling exhausted. Well, what the public is feeling exhausted about is her with her word salad and not really coming up with something, but just talk, and pandering, and all that stuff. And, that's the thing with it, right? Now, here's a good one, too. Biden's mental acuity, right? Because she wouldn't be propped up to be where she's at right now running for president if it wasn't shown on national TV, Biden's mental acuity, and it's so badly diminished and declined that it was obvious it's been bad. But it's been kind of the talk about for the last couple years behind closed doors. But she kept standing by that, he's as nimble as can be, and he's a boondog behind closed doors. He's a hoot, right? He's so great and all that stuff. He's doing A-okay. But if that's really the case, then he would still be running for president, right? But she doesn't really answer that. She deflects from that and say, well, I've seen them in the panic room, blah, 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 over office situation, whatever, right? But he's not on the ballot, and then try to divert it back to Trump's on the ballot, right? We should be questioning Trump's acuity and Trump's age and Trump's health record and blah, blah, blah. That's what she was leading to and all that stuff. And so, bunch of crap is what it is from her. And I don't know. To me, she does not really seriously show that she even cares about the future forward, right? And all this deflection. We all know the immigration problem was completely on their watch, but she tried to blame it as, oh, it's been a thing for years, and then say, oh, well, it's Trump's problem and he's the one that caused it, and all this other crap. It's a bunch of crap, all right, coming from her. And I guess to top it off now, what's been talked about was the awkward ending, right? Because Brett Baer was waved off at least a couple times to cut the interview at the end. So let's see here if they show anything here.
I have
There
much more to
are
say,
a lot of
actually.
things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why we
I
invited
invite
you
everyone
here.
to go to Kamala Harris.
Here, let me go play it from the beginning.
Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have much more to say,
there are a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why we invited you
I invite everyone
here.
to go to KamalaHarris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
And that's why
intend
we
to do to
invited you
strengthen our
here,
economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
support America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So see twice. Oh, hold on. Yeah, twice where he was really told to, we got to end this thing. The handlers were probably waving behind her, just waving. And interesting here. See, it's good to meet you. She showed up 17 minutes late. And members of her staff weren't willing to make up the lost time. I'm talking to like 4 people waving their hands like it's got to stop. I had to dismount there at the end. Interesting. So she was late. And yeah, okay. Interesting. I didn't know she was late for it. So there you go. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that's the thing about it. Like, Trump would stay beyond the time, you know what I'm saying? And here's another thing too, since we're talking about this whole Kamala thing, right? Let me pull up another one here. Because she's pandering to the black Americans, right? African American, black America. And she's pandering with the $20,000 for small business, but driving it towards black Americans. So let's see here. 20,000 handout. All right, let's call it that. So there's videos out there about that and that what they're trying to do. It's a forgivable loan, and she was aiming this towards black men, right? Black people, to start a business and all that, because she believes small business is the backbone of America. But this whole 20,000 handout is a reminder of what people thought were more of what we experienced already during the pandemic, right? When they were doing all these PPP loans, right? And come to find out, a lot of people that were getting those PPP loans, which are supposed to be forgivable loans as well, they use those handouts to buy stuff, right? Buy cars, buy whatever, right? A lot of people got in trouble for, I guess you could say, exploiting the PPP loans from the pandemic. And, a lot of people got in trouble for misusing those funds. Not at first, but it caught up to them. And so when you look at all that, it's just straight pandering if you're trying to aim it towards black people, right? Especially, right? Because she knows she's not really getting support from the black community, right? Especially black men. And so that's the whole thing about it. And of course, and on top of that, I forgot, I read this part here, allowing marijuana to be legalized, right? So that's an aim, especially towards black America, about this $20,000 handout and legalizing a marijuana in that sense, because she knows that maybe it's a cultural thing and it might entice them because of certain elements as to why. That's up to you to really know culturally, and maybe sometimes uh, doesn't matter the race, but sometimes they're asking, hey, what are you going to give me, right? Hey, what are you going to give me, right? Or hey, we've been talking about reparations for a long time, especially in Black Americans, right? They say, hey, we've been talking about reparations for a long time, so where's the reparations? And of course, Kamala will probably say, yeah, we're going to talk about this. We're going to entertain the conversation of reparations. But then what have they done each and every time, right? They'll try to pull you in to make you, cast that vote because they go on a promise of, we're going to do this. And then when they do, they spit you right back out and be like, oh, sorry, we just can't do it, It happened in California, right? Oh, let's form a committee. Right? Gavin Newsom was pandering towards the blacks. We're going to form a committee on reparations, and they actually came up with some proposals, right, which was outrageous. But the outrageous proposals, I mean, it would have destroyed the budget like threefold, right? Threefold on the budget. But maybe it was thought that, oh, it doesn't, if you're going to come up with this, they're just going to print money anyways, and but no, Gavin Newsom said, nah, we can't do that. That's just too much. But what we can do is give you an apology, right? So that's what he said there, and I don't know, I think they say that reparations in general has been unconstitutional, right? That you can't just give reparations to anybody and anything anymore. Um, but the whole thing is, the 20,000 handout is kind of enticing you to vote, right? Vote for me and you'll get a $20,000 handout. But anyhow, I just wanted to just go over this interview and how everybody thought it was really a bad interview. And what you learn from this is that the more that she talks and go about things, the worse it is, right, for her. Like, her basement campaign was probably a little bit better than her talking on all medias now, because it's actually worsened her stance, right? When it comes to all this, it's actually worsened everything about what she is about. But then when you look at everything that she represents, it's just so bad, Like, she doesn't support Israel. She supports Hamas, which is extreme, right? Um, the Green New Deal, all these different handouts, supporting the illegals. I mean, what opposite of American that she is? I mean, everything about it is so un-American, right? So that's who she is. That's what the interview was really trying to cut down to, is to try to get her to fess up and maybe explain some new policy or something that she's going to differentiate from Biden, but she didn't. And so she's still stuck in this Kamala conundrum of, Trump this, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. And, we're going to do some things that I'm different, and I'm going to do some things, and that's it. I mean, that's what you really got out of it. So with that, just wanted to share with you guys my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Subscribe, hit the bell icon, comment down below. I'll see you next one.